Hello everyone. After uploading the video Muslims of TikTok, I received a deluge of positive feedback, especially from the ex-Muslim community. Your comments have made it abundantly clear that this is the content you want to see more of. So, it's about time for Muslims of TikTok Part 2. Unlike in Part 1 though, where we looked at videos from various people, today we're responding to one particular user named RhyadMuslim.
Guess what? There's no such thing as free speech when you're talking about the Muslims. The red line is crystal clear, so be very careful not to cross it again.
The reason we're focusing on him is that, unlike other Muslim TikTokers I found, Rhyad is a bit more rhetorically crafty. But that doesn't mean he can't be debunked. But first, a massive thank you to the sponsor of this video, Atlas VPN. After uploading Muslims of TikTok Part 1, I received multiple comments from people expressing concern for my safety. And I can't blame them. History has shown that being openly critical of Islam can have severe consequences, a reality proven true again just this month. So I feel far safer with Atlas VPN making all my internet traffic travel through an encrypted tunnel, protecting me from spying, public Wi-Fi dangers, and hiding my IP address in online activities. I believe we should be free to go online and speak our minds without being put in danger, so click my link down below and join 6 million people worldwide enjoying the best VPN deal on the market. But, along with privacy, it also blocks ads and malware, gives you lightning fast speed while gaming or streaming, and gets you the best deals while shopping online. And this can be done on all your devices with only one subscription. Right now, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount. It means you can get a 3-year subscription for just $1.83 a month, plus 3 months for free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Time is running out though, so get your deal by clicking the link in the video description below. So how about we begin with Rhyad's video, Why Do Muslim Women Cover Up?
Why do Muslim women cover up? Now the short answer is that it's an act of worship and obedience to Allah. But let's look at the facts. The most precious and valuable things in life are usually the most hidden by nature. You have gold, you have pearls, you have diamonds, and the list goes on.
Well, aside from the fact those things are inanimate objects, they're also kept as property. So following your logic, should women be property? Funnily enough, your analogy can also work in the other direction. Valuable things are usually displayed. A gold watch, a pearl necklace, a diamond ring. So does that mean women should, display their value? Also, if the most valuable things in life are hidden, and the Quran is the most valuable book in Islam, does that mean you should keep your book hidden? This is the problem with making analogies like this. You can always find a way that two things are somewhat alike when overall they're very different. Rhyad, women are not objects, they're human beings, so how about we just treat them like human beings?
And this is exactly why Allah says in the Quran that by covering up, you sisters will be recognized as honorable and virtuous people, and you will not be harassed.
So that's an easy argument to debunk. He didn't say it makes harassment happen less often. He didn't say it makes it less severe. He said, full stop.
You will not be harassed.
Well, I could go over the multiple stories online from Muslim women who covered up and were still harassed, but rather than go anecdote by anecdote, how about we look at this study from the Egyptian Center for Women's Rights, which found that the majority of women in Egypt who were victims of sexual harassment were already covering up. Meanwhile, that same study found that the majority of Egyptian men engaged in sexual harassment, doing so approximately once a day. It's almost like the real issue here is not how women are dressing, but rather how certain men view women. So Rhyad, will you take your own advice and look at the facts, or will you ignore the facts because they contradict your book?
Exposing your beauty for everyone to see attracts the wrong attention from the wrong people. It leads you to become objectified and limits your true value as a human being.
First off, you have no room to lecture about objectification when you began your video comparing women to objects. You're the one doing the objectifying here. Second, if you measure a person's value based on how much they wear, then you don't actually value people. You only value them insofar as they're obeying your book.
Covering up is a symbol of modesty and honor, and not a symbol of oppression. In what world is exposing your body a form of liberation.
In a world where you're forced to cover up your body. In a world where not covering up means being punished. Exposing your body is not a form of liberation in and of itself. It's about having the freedom to decide whether or not you want to. This is not the only video where Riyadh has shared his thoughts on women. He elaborates further in a street preaching video called Gender Roles in Islam.
When it comes to women and men in Islam, they're very different. Women have to cover themselves, but men don't. They have other obligations. Why do men have to do some things that women don't, and women have to do some things that men don't?
Allah says in the Quran, وَلَيْسَ الذَّكَرُ كَالْأُنْثَى. The man is not like the woman. It's as simple as that. I mean, when we look at the facts, biologically, physically, the way we think, everything is different. So the fact that we have differences means that we have different roles.
Now, there is some truth to the idea that we should have different treatment for different people. For example, because people in a wheelchair cannot properly use stairs, they should be given access to a ramp or an elevator. However, it's not enough to say that people should be treated differently because they're different. I mean, Riyadh, you and I have different skin tones, but I'm sure you'd agree that skin tone is not an argument for separate water fountains, right? So we have to demonstrate the differences in question warrant different treatment, and when it comes to women, Islam fails to justify their treatment. Aside from covering up, the Quran says a woman's testimony is worth only half that of a man's, a great policy for a group facing sexual harassment. The reason given for needing 2 women to equal a man's testimony is that if one woman forgets something, the other can remind her. So why do women need reminding but men don't? Well, according to Prophet Muhammad, it's because a woman's mind is deficient. Islam uses the same argument to justify sexist policy as has been used for centuries to justify racist policy. Speaking of which, apparently Riyadh has found the cure for racism.
Is racism a problem? 100%. Do we have a solution for it? Absolutely. And that solution is Islam. As Muslims, we know that yes, we might get away with it in the eyes of the people, but we will never get away with it in the eyes of Allah. So what effect does this have? It pushes the Muslim to actively cleanse their hearts from any ill feelings, which has a knock-on effect. And that knock-on effect is a beautiful unity and brotherhood across all Muslims, regardless of colour or nationality.
Now, Riyadh's argument may sound good on paper, but history tells a very different story. For example, the Arab slave trade, where for centuries mostly black slaves from sub-Saharan Africa were transported northward to the Islamic Arab world. The Armenian genocide, where over 1 million Armenians were ethnically cleansed by the Islamic Ottoman Empire. The Bangladesh genocide, where over 3 million Bengalis were massacred by the Pakistan army, even though both populations were majority Muslim. And let's not forget the centuries-long sectarian conflict between Sunni and Shiite Muslims. So much for unity and brotherhood. Despite insisting that Islam will bring about peace, unity, and family, history has repeatedly shown it's been ineffective at preventing evil. Speaking of evil, Riyadh made an entire video explaining why there is evil.
If God exists, why is there evil? There's actually many reasons, but I'll give you 3. Reason number 1. If I was to tell you there is a white dot somewhere on this white piece of paper, you wouldn't be able to tell me where it is. If I was to put a black dot in the middle of the paper, you would instantly be able to tell me where it is. In the exact same way, to understand what is good, we need to have bad.
Riyadh, do we need Emperor Palpatine to be real to understand that he's bad? Do we need to have a zombie outbreak to understand that would be bad? Or can we understand a thing is bad in concept without manifesting in real life?
Bad allows us to appreciate good. In the exact same way, if we were to see people tested with poverty, with illness, with mental health, whatever it is, it allows us to truly appreciate the blessings that we do have.
Think for a moment about how psychopathic that comment is. Riyadh is essentially telling you that his appreciation for life is dependent on other people's suffering. Unless other people are starving, he can't appreciate food. Unless other people are homeless, he can't appreciate having a home. Unless other people are sick and dying, he can't appreciate being healthy. Riyadh's logic justifies perpetuating misery.
Reason number 2. Imagine a kid that's on his way to get vaccinated. All that kid sees coming his way is pain, but the parents know full well that this kid is limited in his understanding, and that small pain is part of a greater good. Similarly, what we perceive to be evil can also be part of a greater good.
Number 1, this is nothing more than cherry picking. While there are things like vaccines which are part of a greater good, what exactly is the greater good of pedophilia, slavery, genocide, etc.? Number 2, this contradicts your contrast argument. If we need bad to appreciate good, then curing bad things like disease would make it harder to appreciate good. So which is it? Do we need to have bad or not?
Reason number 3. As Muslims, we do not live for this life. We live for the next. Our purpose is to meet Allah after we die with the least amount of sins as possible. Any pain we go through in this life, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, whatever it is, deletes bad deeds from our account, therefore helping us in the afterlife where is the true and final abode. This is the mercy of Allah.
Did you hear that, rape victims? That traumatic experience you went through? That PTSD you now have to live with? That was simply Allah deleting bad deeds from your account. He was helping you get into heaven.
This is the mercy of Allah.
Well, there is no torture like Allah's mercy.
And finally, I want to remind you of the promise that Allah makes to all of us in the Quran. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. That Allah will never ever burden you with anything you cannot handle. Allah is promising you that He will never push you past your breaking point.
Okay, then how do you explain suicide? How do you explain people dying from a virus or cancer? Are these not examples of being pushed past your breaking point? There is no lie like the promise of Allah. After everything you've heard, you might be wondering, how can Riyad believe so many things which are demonstrably untrue? How can he not identify the clear contradictions in his worldview? And I think we can find the answer to that question in his video about hell.
If I create this bottle, only I can decide everything to do with that bottle. In the exact same way, Allah created us. Therefore, only He can decide everything to do with His creation.
Notice how, yet again, Riyad is comparing thinking, feeling human beings to a non-thinking, non-feeling object.
Which is exactly why He says in the Quran, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. He will never be questioned about what He does.
And there's the answer. Because questioning Big Brother is a thought crime, any contradictions or untrue claims have to be ignored. In other words, his critical thinking ends where Islam begins, a point he continues to prove as the video goes on.
Now ask yourself, which crime is more severe? Committing an injustice to a plant or to a human being? Obviously a human being, because of the value and attributes of a human being higher than that of a plant. Now imagine committing an injustice to your creator, whose value and attributes are infinitely more than a human and are maximal. Of course the crime is going to be infinitely worse, which is going to lead to infinite punishment.
But here's the difference, Riyad. An injustice to a human can cause harm. If a human is, say, stabbed, their body can be injured. They can feel pain. They can experience emotional trauma. In short, they can suffer. Meanwhile, if God is meant to be all-powerful, an injustice to God will be inconsequential to God. It is a victimless crime. So God is responding to zero harm to him with infinite harm to you.
This is the mercy of Allah. So to wrap up, it's worth mentioning that the only way to avoid this torture chamber is by being a Muslim. A Muslim is literally someone that submits to God. When we realize that this life that we have right now was given to us for free by our Creator, we must submit to our Creator because it is He that governs every aspect of our lives because He's the Creator.
Riyad, if a person only gives you something to make you do their bidding, then it wasn't given to you for free. Free implies there's no strings attached. The word you're looking for is a bribe. And if rejecting that bribe means they'll hurt you, that's called a threat. Personally, I have no interest in working with people who operate like the mafia. So today we've learned that covering up stops harassment except when it doesn't. Islam stops racism except all the times it didn't. But all those things are good actually because it gives the world contrast, and if you think that's messed up, well too bad because God's in control and you're not allowed to question him. Now, think about this. Here we have an ideology that compares humans to objects, an ideology with a God that's all-knowing, all-powerful, and can never be questioned. So if a person, or group, claim to be acting in the name of God, imagine what they could justify. If you enjoyed this video and want me to expose more from TikTok, please subscribe, ring the bell, and give this video a thumbs up. I'd also recommend watching Muslims of TikTok Part 1, which I'll have linked on screen. And last but not least, if you want to help support my videos like these amazing people, please consider joining me over on Patreon. Any amount you can give is greatly appreciated. But until next time, have a great day.